It's Friday. Are you ready to rumble? Joining me tonight for tonight's Big Picture Rumble, S.E. Robinson, Deputy Director of the Paul Revere Project and contributor to Human Events, The Blaze, and The National Review. Nicole Williams, attorney and progressive strategist. And Austin Petersen, Director of Production for FreedomWorks. Great to have you all with us and to see you all. Romney's big night last night at the RNC. And up to this point, he's pretty much been very non-specific about everything. He's been talking in generalities and platitudes that may work, but the Center for American Progress pointed out he made no mention of financial reform. He made no mention of climate change. He made no mention of immigration. He made no mention of Afghanistan or Syria. No mention of Social Security. No mention of veterans, which is kind of odd for a Republican. And, of course, no mention of Romney care. Is he going to continue a content-free campaign like this? What do you think, Austin?
Why should he? What's the point of putting any content in there when all you could do is alienate people? See, this is the time when all of the candidates have the big rush to the middle. This is where you go for the moderate voters. This is where you go and you talk about things that everybody understands.
Stupid voters?
Well, moderate voters, I wouldn't call them stupid voters. I mean, I'm not running for office, but I mean, the sheeple is what some people refer to them as. But why in the world would Romney ever want to give specifics? Because we saw what happened to his VP candidate when he gave specifics about how he would cut the budget. Romney probably plans to do something similar to cut the budget, but the last thing you want to do is tell people you want to cut the budget because they'll freak out. So it doesn't surprise me.
Sound like a strategy that can win, Nicole?
But why would you even pick Paul Ryan as your VP candidate if you're not going to talk substantively about the issues? That's why he said he picked Paul Ryan, because he want to have a real conversation about the real problems that are facing America. So now here's your time to talk about the problems, and you fail to do so. You give all these wonderful, flowery speeches and wonderful rhetoric, but there's no substance. There's no plan. He has no plan.
He's the ultimate politician.
Essie, is it possible that Paul Ryan was actually shoved down Mitt Romney's throat by the Koch brothers and a couple of other billionaires?
No,
he's their boy.
That's not possible at all. I think Mitt Romney's a leader. I don't think anyone's shoving anything down his throat. What I think is that nowhere is it written down that the RNC speech is supposed to be talk about your specific economic goals, lay down some principles, lay down some top marginal tax rates. It's not what the RNC speech is for. And he was specific. He was specific about his faith. He was specific about his family, what matters to him, and the reasons why he's going to be a better president than Barack Obama.
But because he's not Barack Obama. That's all he said. I'm not Barack Obama. That's why I will be better.
And the question I was asking is, what are we going to see over the next 2 months until the election? Are we going to start seeing substance?
I think we will see some specifics, but I agree with Austin that there's definite strength in not putting specifics out there, because then you present a target, and Barack Obama knew that better than anyone else. He was the most mysterious and the least defined president that we ever elected.
Barack Obama had specific policies that he was going to advance. He was going to close down Guantanamo Bay, which he didn't do.
Because the Republicans refused to fund it.
That's not true. Not at all.
That is absolutely true.
It's because he couldn't find another place to keep all the very dangerous criminals that were being
funding. Close that was blocked in the House of Representatives by Paul Ryan and that other cabal of 14 guys who met at the caucus room the evening of the inauguration and swore a blood oath to each other that they would do everything they could to block the Obama administration. Robert Draper's written a book about it.
Oh, come on now. Barack Obama's been the neocon's best friend. He's been assassinating American citizens. Absolutely. Barack Obama is the ultimate neocon because he's been following the neocon platform. He's assassinated an American citizen without a constitutional authority.
Your candidate is devoid of substance, which is why he picked the one person in the Republican Party that has a little bit of substance. Unfortunately, his substance would kill the poor and the middle class.
I don't understand why the Republicans aren't happy with the Barack Obama re-election. I mean, basically, a Mitt Romney, presidency would would sort of be the devil you don't know. Why wouldn't we want to keep Barack Obama in hand if you want to keep the money flowing to Wall Street and if you want to keep the wars going overseas? You've got everything you need.
I don't think Mitt Romney's the devil we don't know. I think there's a lot we know about him. He was a very successful businessman, and he actually believes in America. He actually believes in America. He believes in America.
That believe in America. That doesn't mean they're the right person to lead.
There's no one in the White House who believes in America.
In
1989,
Bain was broke. Romney had made some really bad decisions. The company was so broke.
He took risks.
No, the company was so broke that they had to be bailed out by the FDIC, and they screwed the FDIC, our government. They paid them 30 cents on the dollar, and that's how Bain got back on their feet, with a government bailout. You're telling me this is the guy who's going to show us how to run the country?
There's tons of companies still around that he helped streamline, that he helped restructure. There's tons of cops. Everybody buying school supplies is going to be going to Staples
But you
this
want him
fall.
to take risks with your tax dollars.
I mean, we need to have risks. The risks have already been taken. The risks were taken in Medicare and Social Security. The risks were taken when we leveraged our future on these unsustainable entitlement programs. That's the risk.
Those are not
risk
entitlement
is not
programs.
doing anything to fix it.
Those are investment
Obama is
programs.
proposing the risk.
We pay into those. We get the money back out. These
Exactly.
are not entitlements.
I'm not.
You
do you
are
think I'm
certainly
going to get
paying
Social
into it.
Security? I know I'm paying in, but
You're
do you
paying
think I'm
into
going to
it.
claim
You'll get
Social
some
Security?
It's just like the way
You
we
know,
paid it.
if tomorrow you walked out of here and, God forbid, got hit by a bus and were disabled for the rest of your life, you would be on Social Security starting the day after tomorrow. Yes, and Social Security is there for you.
I still wouldn't
and that's
vote for
fully
Barack
a third of Social
Obama. I still
Security.
wouldn't vote for Barack Obama because I know that at the end of the day, regardless of the check I'm getting from the government, the entire country is on an unsustainable path. It's just mathematically
Because
not
the
going to work. As
Republicans-
Paul Ryan has said, this is the
Because
most
the Republicans
predictable
have
crisis in
blocked
history.
any serious or meaningful attempt
You can't blame it on Republicans.
Oh, come on.
This is a
I'm not
bipartisan
gonna say they're
consensus.
blameless.
300 filibusters
blameless.
has never happened in the history of the United
I'm not going
States.
to say they're
Grover
blameless,
Cleveland.
but the Democrats, they're both
Republicans-
equally complicit in a scheme to ignore the
Democrats
actual
are not
problems. You guys
complicit.
are talking about
The
birth
Republicans refuse
control.
to do with anything. That's been their mission since day one. They refuse to even blink across the aisle, let alone walk.
When was the last time Democrats introduced a budget?
We've introduced
2009.
budgets.
No, it was 2009. It's been over 1,000 days since
The
you guys have had a
president has
budget.
proposed a budget.
And it was
The
voted
Republican
down. It was
Congress-
no one voted
Yes,
for it.
by the
It-
Republicans.
unanimously. No, in the Senate, it lost 0 to 97.
Yeah.
No one voted
It was-
for Barack Obama's latest budget.
Well, it was-
it's
it was-
unserious.
Yeah,
and it needs
that
to
was
end.
that was a procedural mess. And again, it was because John Boehner and because Barack Obama thought he had to deal with John Boehner, and then Eric Cantor came along and said, "I'm going to do a power play and put the shiv in the back of John Boehner," and all of a sudden everything blows up.
I mean, procedure didn't produce
what-
a budget that called for more money than Congress would ever have given him. More money that he wanted more money.
Every year
in
is
every
more
single
money.
budget
Always has
than
been since
Congress
George
Right.
Washington. It's called
But
inflation and
the
growth.
Washington Post
Exactly.
fact checker says that in every single case, Barack Obama asked for more money in a federal budget than he got. Every single time, he wanted more money. When
You think Reagan
this
didn't
is
do that?
the biggest
Right, every
threat. No,
president
they
does
all do
that.
that.
So it
when
doesn't
Reagan
make
entered office, the budget deficit, or the national debt was $1 trillion. When he left office, it was $2 trillion. And
No,
he
it was almost $3
gravely,
trillion.
sorry, $3 trillion. He was
sooner
gravely
or later we're
concerned
talking
about
about
it.
real
But
money.
look where we
And it
are
was
now.
only $800
and Barack
billion when he
Obama
came
has
into office.
added
Right.
about $5 trillion
And that
to
was
that debt.
25 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Obama's added twice as much to the debt than Bush did in 8 years.
No.
Yes.
Sorry, not even close. Bush has added that to the budget. We are looking at two of Bush's wars. We are looking at Bush's recession. We're looking at Bush's tax
What we're looking at
tax
is two
cuts.
sides of the same coin, ladies and gentlemen.
And what has been maintained
auto
is
bailouts,
Republicans in the House of Representatives,
Paul Ryan's auto bailouts.
representatives
Thank you.
maintaining. Yeah, speaking of Paul Ryan, let's turn to Paul Ryan's speech. Here was one of the many half-truths and misleading statements that Paul Ryan laid out in his speech night before last.
A lot of guys I went to high school with worked at that GM plant. Right there at that plant, candidate Obama said, "I believe that if our government is there to support you, this plant will be here for another 100 years." That's what he said in 2008. Well, as it turned out, that plant didn't last another year. It is locked up and empty to this day. And that's how it is in so many towns, where the recovery that was promised is nowhere in sight.
So the recovery that Obama was supposed to bring us didn't happen, and that factory got closed down. And I don't think anybody in the audience thought he was condemning George W. Bush. But take a look at this picture, and where are we going to put the picture? Oh, it's full screen. Okay. This is the last vehicle off the Janesville assembly line, and it's being donated to the. It's in the cube. Okay, I can see it. Donated to the United Way of North Rock County, December 23rd, 2008. This was a plant that was closed during the presidency of George W. Bush. Why is Paul Ryan talking about this?
Well, it's an absolute joke because, listen, presidents do not create jobs, okay? Governments do not create jobs.
No, my question is, why is the guy running for vice president up there lying about,
I don't think he was lying. He wasn't lying at all.
You probably thought he wasn't lying, right?
You really think that all those Republicans in that
audience?
audience thought that he was condemning George
Right.
Bush?
No, I don't think that at all. I never said that. But he presented two facts. He said, hey, Barack Obama, he came here, he stood here, and he said, this plant's going to close down. If I'm elected, it'll be here for 100 years from now. And then he said, and then Paul Ryan said, Now that factory is closed. Two facts.
Right.
It was fact one, Obama said he'd fix it. Fact two, it's closed now. Broken promise.
Okay,
and now liberals are dealing with the cognitive dissonance
it's
caused by the failure of their great leader.
He didn't say he was going to fix that specific plan. He said that the role of government should
He implied it in the same way that Paul Ryan implied that it was his fault.
The plants like this.
There was no lie
to protect workers here.
There was no lie, though.
But he insinuated that Barack Obama was responsible for the closing of that plant. Barack Obama was a candidate at that time.
He never said he was responsible. Democrats, knowing that he was responsible, are trying to defend it. I mean, they've got a guilty conscience.
How is he responsible for something that occurred before he was president of the United States?
The GM auto bailout. He was commander-in-chief when the United States government assumed control of the largest auto manufacturer in the United States.
Which is what John Kasich was bragging about. Hey, Ohio is back, thanks to the
It's an absolute joke, and it's a total fallacy to think that a president or a governor or someone is really responsible for job creation. The only thing that politicians can do about job creation is stay the hell out of the way.
That's nonsense.
Because they do not create jobs.
That is nonsense.
It's
and
the
you heard of trade policies?
Politicians can destroy jobs, but they can't create jobs.
But for the auto bailout, Detroit would not be where it is today. Not to say that it's on the
UAW would be where it is.
Right.
Janesville might have gone through
American
bankruptcy,
auto
then bought and
manufacturing
reopened
is
and creating
back.
jobs right now.
American manufacturing is on an uphill climb, and it would not be there if it wasn't for the auto bailout.
No.
It would not be there. That is so true. They were all about
the auto bailout was a bipartisan
project.
project. Absolutely, we should have let them go
more
bankrupt.
plants like the
That's
one
how
in
capitalism
Wisconsin.
works. You have to have bankruptcy and liquidation for capitalism to work.
I want to stay focused on this topic of the deceptiveness of Paul Ryan. You know, he's claiming, and Mitt Romney repeated the same thing, that Obama raided Medicare for $716 billion to give to Obamacare. Paul Ryan, in his own budget, took that $716 million and said, this is crazy that we're giving this money to private corporations for insurance when we can simply pay the hospitals ourselves and cut them out of the middle.
Exactly.
Anyhow, I just got a cue here. We got to move along. More Rumble coming up right after the break.
Here's Mitt Romney trying to figure out the name of that thing that we Americans call a donut.
The far left does not want the USA to defeat terrorism.
Are there terrorist cells in your neighborhood? You cannot be a liberal and a Christian.
Republicans lie.
It's really so stupid.
You know, the corporate media distracts us from what you and I should care about because they're a profit-driven industry that sells us sensationalistic garbage and calls it breaking news. I'm Abby Martin, and we're going to break the set.
You know how sometimes you see a story and it seems so whole and complete, you think you understand it, and then you glimpse something else. You hear or see some other part of it and realize everything you thought you knew, you don't know? I'm Tom Hartman. Welcome to The Big Picture.
Welcome back to the Big Picture Rumble. On our panel tonight, S.E. Robinson, Deputy Director of the Paul Revere Project and contributor to Human Events, The Blaze, and the National Review. Nicole Williams, attorney and progressive strategist. And Austin Petersen, Director of Production for FreedomWorks. So let's get back to it. The Republican effort to rig the November election has gotten a couple of setbacks here. On Thursday, a federal judge said that the Texas law, the Texas voter suppression ID law, was on its face voter suppression, basically. This is a very weird law. An expired gun license from another state was enough to get you in to vote, but a Social Security card or a student ID was not. I mean, can you imagine sitting around going, okay, what's going to be legal ID? Well, what do Republicans have? Guns! Oh, yeah. So anyhow, this is just nuts. Anyhow, the Texans say they're going to take this to the Supreme Court. We'll see where this is. But isn't this just vote rigging? Since, I mean, last year you had 23 people who were accused of voter fraud, 26 people who died because their televisions fell on their heads. This is a non-problem. Essie?
Well, I mean, this decision was championed as a victory for the deregulate our elections crowd. But I think that it actually set them back in a few key ways. And one of them is that the court actually ruled that whether or not there are proven instances of voter fraud doesn't matter. And so that's going to be a big thing going forward. Obviously, voter protections
doesn't matter
won't
in
be
the context of whether the law is
in terms of.
No, that ruling was very specific. Those issues don't matter in the context of the 1965 Civil Rights Act and the fact that Texas has been operating under a court order for years and years. I forget when it first.
But they've left the Voter Rights Act or Voter Right Act vulnerable to, I guess. It's going to be repealed.
Well, you could argue that
it's made it easier
what
to repeal
what that is saying is that okay, pass another law if you want to deal with this.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not the point. I mean, the point is
the law was. My question is, what is an acceptable form of identification to someone to go and vote? I mean, what is the problem with asking someone to show an ID if you go to register to vote? You have to show an ID to go. To
Austin,
get
you have asked the perfect question. Let me give you. I think we have a graphic that we can show up on the screen here. Here we go. This is the percentage of people, adults, right now who don't have a valid photo ID. Okay, among African Americans, 25%. Among Asians, 20%. Among Latinos, 19%. Among college student age, 18%. Among seniors, 18%. Among poor people, 15%. Among whites, 8%.
That's interesting.
So
but
the Republicans are looking at this and going, okay, if we can say that you can't vote with an ID, we can knock off about a third of all those people who vote for the Democrats.
Well, first of all, they did say if you have a gun, then you could vote, and I bet a higher percentage of blacks, Asians, and Latinos have guns than have those registered IDs.
Not that are registered. But no, the Brennan Center of Justice produced this graph, so I mean, I don't think very many Republicans are looking at it and taking strategy. No, they are. They're solid. I'm not saying Republicans are taking strategy notes from this. I think this graph.
The Republicans were looking at this 2, 3, 4 years ago. The Republicans were looking at this in 1980 when Paul Wayrick was out there saying, I don't want everybody to vote. Vote, elections, frankly, are not won by a majority.
Conservatives are beginning to look at the Hispanic base as a conservative base because Hispanics are naturally socially conservative, and I actually see that the Hispanic base is actually going to start shifting into the red category because
But given that, why would you want to prevent them from the ability to vote?
I mean, no, this entire conversation shouldn't be about race because one thing that the court ruled today is that race is not a proxy for poverty, and that's the way the court. I guess that's the way the court ruled.
Right.
Is that?
But here's the problem: the Voting Rights Act specifies race; it doesn't specify poverty.
No, listen. The law itself never said anything about poverty or race. These 3 liberal judges. I mean, one of them was a Bush appointee, but that doesn't mean he's not a liberal, or she's not a liberal. But the bottom line is that they're making a comparison, or I guess they're trying to use poverty as a proxy for race, and frankly, I think people should be offended by that.
That is actually sort of ridiculous.
The Ohio law also got knocked out today too. I mean, this is.
There's still several voter ID laws that are in place.
But the larger question. I mean, let's take this to the biggest frame with the statistics that we just saw a second ago on the graph, and the fact, the absolute fact that election fraud, not election fraud, voter fraud, somebody showing up and pretending to be somebody else to vote, is so rare in the United States that you are more likely to get hit by lightning over any 10-year period than to have voter fraud happen in any 1 year period.
I just don't accept that.
It is not an issue.
No one can say that because there is not a serious mechanism in place to detect it. We don't know how much voter fraud.
Spent $74 million trying to find it.
Yeah, and we found Acorn, his lawyers, and the president right now, and several Acorn affiliates have renamed themselves and are out right now.
And they found Acorn had nothing to do with voter fraud.
Why don't we let the progressive tell us? What in your mind, as a progressive, what in your mind is an acceptable form of identification?
In In my mind, you do not need ID in order to
Shouldn't you have to
vote.
prove your age?
So there's no reason.
If you're in the voter file, you go, you show up, you say your name, you're there, you go and vote.
So what's to stop someone from going and registering a dead person and voting and then going and voting?
First of all, when you register to vote, that registration is checked at that point in time. They're not going to put you on the rolls if you're dead or if you're a felon in the system.
Experience has shown that that's not the case.
Okay.
If you want to look at the North Dakota election when Norm Coleman won, there were felons who voted in that, almost 1,000.
That was an anomaly.
And that election came down to a very, very close
And most
percentage.
states are
so
very
you could say
good.
that fraudulent votes turned that election, giving the Democrats another seat in the House, which led to the passage of Obamacare.
Exactly.
Voter fraud is huge.
It is not
it's
a
huge.
huge
It's
thing.
the most
It's not
important.
a huge
It's the
thing.
most
We have
important.
much larger
The
things to
integrity-
worry about
the
than the
integrity of our
26
elections.
people
The
who might
integrity
show
of
up
our
at the
elections.
polls
I agree
and say
with.
The
something.
integrity
do
of
have
our
much bigger
very
problems.
political system rests on
People
the
want
sanctity
to
of our
exercise their
elections.
vote. Why should we not encourage that? Why should we not support individuals to have the ability to do that?
We absolutely, but we should.
Why don't we
honor
take
their
it a
vote
step
by keeping
farther? You know, I get everybody's argument here. Why don't we take this a step farther and say, like Australia has, in fact, we have no, you know, in Bush v. Gore, they came right out and said there is no enumerated right to vote for President of the United States in the Constitution. So, why don't we say that there actually is a right to vote and put that in the Constitution or put that into law? And B, in Australia, you're required to vote. They have 98% voter compliance because if you don't vote, you get fined, and the fines start going up exponentially.
Well, we don't want to replace voluntarism with fascism, so we don't want to have to turn the two
Australia's fascist country.
Anybody would force you to go and vote for somebody, you know, vote for your dictator is a fascist, absolutely.
I mean, more people voting in a democracy is not necessarily a good thing. But
Yeah,
it's just
how is more people voting not a good
shows that
thing?
more people
Oh my
aren't
God,
happy
how
with
do
the
you
government
know
they're
that?
getting.
No,
More
it's
people
not.
aren't
More
happy
people
with the government they're getting, so they're
taking
taking off from
part in the
work.
democratic
They're getting a
process.
babysitter from their kids. They're going out of their way to cast a vote.
No, they don't have to
High levels of voting is
And
not a good
also,
sign
if
for
we
the
have
regime that's in
early
charge.
voting, which I know you guys are so afraid of, if we have early voting, then people can vote at a time that's convenient for them.
And unions can
and they don't
facilitate
have to
that
get
very,
babysit.
very, like, wholeheartedly. The unions will help them. They'll
Anyone
give
can-
them the paper. They can fill it out,
And you-
they'll
And
No.
FreedomWorks can show up
Early
in
voting is
buses and
showing
bring
up.
people
I'm
in.
not talking
Vote
about
early and often.
absentee voting.
Vote early and vote
I'm
often.
not talking about
Auto the
absentee
labor
voting.
unions.
Let's talk about Citizens United. Republicans are fully embracing Citizens United on their party platform this year. In fact, they, by name, called out Citizens United, said we need more of this, basically. Said, you know, let's do away with all of the last vestiges of McCain-Feingold. Let's absolutely create a country where, Bernie Sanders today was telling me, they've identified 45 people who account for 47% of all the money that has been spent so far in this election cycle. So you got this is the definition of a banana republic.
No,
this is how oligarchies
but spending
work.
doesn't
It's
mean
like you've got
win,
36
Tom.
families in Mexico who basically
shouldn't
control
have
80% of the electoral
Yeah, it helps,
process.
but there were 6 major primary races
Why would the Republican Party embrace turning America into an oligarchy?
Well, it's not just the Republican Party that would embrace turning America into a free republic where you can actually spend your money as you see fit.
You think an
and
oligarchy
make
is
that
a free
decision.
republic?
Well, we have an oligarchy as a resort of bipartisanship and the fascism that comes from both parties, not because of the ideas of liberty. We have an oligarchy in this country.
Wait a minute. An oligarchy is where a small number of very wealthy oligarchs basically run not only the economy, but the government as well.
Yeah, and that's a bipartisan consensus. This is not a left-right issue. This is not a Republican versus Democrat issue.
Then
Remember.
why is it that the Republicans are putting it in their platform that they like it that way?
Because I get to spend my money however I see fit,
but you're
Tom,
not a
because I
billionaire. The
earned
bottom line
it.
is
Well, I
this
will
is
be,
a
and I hope
speech
to be.
You're not a transnational corporation.
One day.
This is an issue of free speech, and I think what you saw, I guess it was yesterday, that Barack Obama was online doing his little chat thing, trying to release a message very much under the radar as far as conservatives and fans of liberty are concerned. And his message was that he supports a constitutional amendment that would essentially repeal free speech portions of the First Amendment. That's what he says. He wants an amendment overturning the Citizens United. The president yesterday proposed a constitutional amendment
Is
to
there anything
repeal free
fraudulent about
speech.
spending your own money? I mean,
To say that money is the same thing as speech. Money's property.
Right.
no,
You know?
what you're saying
Money
is that people are
facilitates
too
persuasion.
stupid.
This is not speech. This is property.
Absolutely right. It is speech
It is
because
not.
I had to.
not.
Absolutely, it is because
It is
how
not.
I
I
spend
should
my
not-
money.
In order for me to speak, I should not have to have millions of
By
dollars.
choosing choosing to go and use an establishment such as McDonald's over a Starbucks, I'm choosing to exercise my free speech rights to support McDonald's over a Starbucks.
I should not have to have billions of dollars in order to get my point across, and that is the issue that we have with citizens.
But you assume that people are stupid, because what you're saying is that a millionaire can swindle the entire public just by spending the most amount of money. So you're saying that all of these... So you're saying that your entire voting base are a bunch of idiots.
So you're saying
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that...
Not in all cases, especially not at the end of a campaign.
Listen, if Donald Trump spent $1 billion trying to convince me that his hair is sexy,
yes,
he would fail. Just like the Democrats will fail spending $1 billion trying to tell us that Barack Obama is better.
I have been 2.5 feet away from Donald Trump's hair. It's the worst plug disaster you've ever seen.
Right, but no amount of money can
Last
be spent
question.
to stop him.
Mitt Romney had to give the speech of his life last night. Unfortunately, he was overshadowed by Clint Eastwood.
I wondered about, you know, when what do you want me to tell Romney? I can't tell him to do that. Can't do that to himself. You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy.
Right. The empty chair is the one that's absolutely crazy. Earlier on, there was a discussion to bring on a Ronald Reagan hologram, but the idea was nixed out of fear that it might actually overshadow Mitt Romney. Now, in retrospect, the Reagan hologram would have been the best thing, don't you think?
Yeah. Probably so.
Absolutely.
It was a little bizarre. I mean, it was interesting, but he looked like the crazy old man.
Yeah. Get off my lawn!
Right, exactly.
Get off that chair!
I mean, I don't agree at all. I think that the performance that Clint Eastwood gave last night was the single greatest piece of performance art that has ever been delivered, perhaps since Socrates' Apology. That was just brilliant. Just brilliant.
That was Socrates. You're
talking about I'm being serious. That was brilliant. That was brilliant. He's got liberals choking on their tongues, stumbling over their feet, trying to figure out, oh no, someone from Hollywood, one of our guys, is criticizing Barack Obama and doing it in a hilarious,
SC, I got to wrap it up.
fashion.
FC Robinson, Nicole Williams, Austin Petersen, thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Much appreciated. Coming up after the break.